All right, everybody, welcome to the 381st edition of the Holy Backboard Podcast. I am Dustin here in rainy Rip City, and I got my man.
Man, Sage here. Very excited to talk about this Blazers first week. And yeah, it was definitely raining. When I went out to get some lunch, I was like, oh man, the all gray outfit was not the right choice for this rainy ass weather. But I uh I powered through and let everybody know that I'm a Providence Friars fan. So it is what it is, man. I'm very excited about talking about this game. It's the first time we can talk about games that matter. I mean, the season doesn't, but like these games mean something. I prefer talking about regular season games than preseason games.
Yes, for sure. Before we jump in, it is the 30th, day before Halloween. Give me one of your go-tos when you watch Halloween movies. If you do, it's the season. What give me a go-to movie that Sage is watching.
So I think movies is my biggest weakness in the whole popular. Well, actually, I have tons of weaknesses. I listen to Cool G Rap and Cannabis, so my popular cultural meter is at a very low margin for error now, but I would say that me watching movies has been something like that's happened maybe a handful of times. So I really don't participate in the watching of scary movies. So I think this is a better question for you to answer yourself because I'm a complete and total fraidy cat when it comes to the the movie thing.
I like the old school stuff. I just watched The Thing for the first time last night as from 1982, but it was, rated really high in Rotten Tomatoes. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I love all of the Halloweens. Didn't like the Rob Zombie iteration, and I did really like the last trilogy they did with Jamie Lee Curtis. Those are probably my favorite. I liked Scream back in the day. I like a good jump scare, minor blood. I think the excessive gore is just kind of like what's the point? It's just dumb. It's not my genre of Halloween. I like more things that are more, atmosphere, that they're setting it up a little eerie. Like you want to, you're not sure when the next scare is going to come. That's the type of Halloween movies that I like. And lastly, it has changed a bit for me as my palate has gotten older, as I near the 40-year-old mark, and
Old
you're
ass.
you're not too far behind me, so I would keep that old ass remark to yourself. Give me two or three Halloween candies that you're going to be crushing, or that you would crush if you had them.
Yo, I've been on TikTok and people have been calling me Unk and they think I'm 25. So you know what? I'm not totally an old ass, but they say I had aura and that I look like I'm 25 years old. I'm like, you know, I ain't even gonna correct you on that. Yeah, I'm a hard 25, bro. Um, um, I don't know, man. Like I'm I'm kind of still a chocolate guy. I try not to eat candy. And again, this is old man talk.
Same. No, no,
I
no,
tr
same. Like this is why like tomorrow's my day where I actually get to have a couple pieces of candy, so I'm saving it for tomorrow. But that's why I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, I guess I still really like peanut M&Ms, but like I haven't had candy in like a year, bro. So it's like I don't
Same.
know. I'm guessing I still like peanut M&Ms, but I'm not too sure anymore, bro. It's like, man, you know what I do? I like Ben and Jerry's ice cream, so that's what I'll indulge tomorrow. I
Oh,
have
hell
some
yeah.
of that.
Give me all of that chunky monkey
Yeah.
all day, every day. Yeah, like when you're nearing 40 and you go in and get your physicals and you get your blood work and you see the labs come back and you're just like, okay, I gotta stay at my P's and Q's. And then you look at the nutritional facts. I look at added sugar like a hawk on
Mm.
everything. Like I try to cut it out because it's in really everything
It's
that
in
you so
everything, you know,
I'm
yeah.
not going to diverge too far down that rabbit hole, but this is why Halloween is a little of a special night. I'm probably going to stick with maybe one or two sweet can't maybe a Skittles or a Starburst because I really do like those. But the
Mhm.
chocolate, either a Twix or a Milky Way. I'm big into caramel.
Mhm.
So I'll probably go with one of those two. But yeah, it's definitely like, got to save my sugar for events that really matter.
Mhm.
We ordered a couple of pies for Thanksgiving that I'll be excited to talk to you about once we get closer to that holiday. But without further ado, let's knock it out for our first episode of the 2024-2025 season, actual basketball that we get to talk about. The Portland Trailblazers are 1-3 on the season. Let's do a quick recap. Opening night, they ended up losing 140 to 104 to the Golden State Warriors in what is the largest opening night defeat in Portland Trailblazers history, which is not an easy accomplishment to achieve. So kudos to Chauncey Billups for having that on his resume. They have a home and home with the New Orleans Pelicans. They lose 105-103 last Friday, despite having a 14-point lead in the third quarter. And they come back on Sunday. It was a matinee. We were both there. 125-103. They got incredibly hot from behind the arc. And then they kicked off their first road game of the year Monday in Sacramento. It was close, but the Kings pulled away, winning 111-98. The Blazers on the year have a point differential of minus 7.3. It is second worst in the Western Conference, only to the winless Utah Jazz. Sage, where do you want to start with these first four games as we look into the beginning of this season?
Since we were there for the first for two of the first three, I want to talk about the Kings game. We we really dealt with paint-centric bigs with Jackson Davis, Zion, Daniel Theis, Yves Mises. But to see how open the court gets when there's a perimeter-centric big on the opposing team in Domantas Sabonis, it was just driving lanes everywhere. Like De'Aaron Fox got biz. Uh, Debo just absolutely punished Anfernee. Like I think when they introduce a stretch big into this into defense, we have no answers because Donovan does his best in the paint. DeAndre isn't leaving the paint. Like when I watched the Kings, I was like, yeah, we're close, but they can easily just push ahead. And in the third and fourth quarter, it got pushed to like 25. Like I think in order for the Portland Trailblazers to win, I think defensively it's all going to the hoop where DeAndre and Donovan can, change people's minds. Like, they built that wall on Zion. And for those teams that don't have shooting and all their work is done in the paint. Like, BI wants to get middies, Zion wants to dunk it. Like, what they want to do. We can handle that. But when it comes to teams that are more creative than just give the ball to Zion and have him go into the paint, I think that's where we get into some trouble. Like you saw what happens with the Warriors, and you're seeing what happened with the Kings. Like we have no defense for perimeter centric bigs or teams that take a lot of threes. Like New Orleans, we were begging them to take those threes, and if it wasn't Jordan Hawkins, it was a quality shot for us. But it seems like our keys and our formula to winning is have them go straight into Donovan and DA and the wall that we have in the paint. We don't really have the quickness and the perimeter defense to, you know, win the game. So it's a very narrow way of us to be in a competitive game in these four games that we've watched.
Yeah, Sabonis was one of two from behind the arc in that game. Trey Lyles one of three. On as a whole, the Kings shot 14 of 35, 40%. So
But it was
above
the it
league
was the
average.
the threat of them shooting too. You couldn't leave him wide open. You couldn't leave him Donovan Clingan open, you know?
I was a little bit more surprised that despite only having one smaller player on the floor, as Chauncey Billups has rolled out Anfernee with, just length across the floor, the Kings were still able to get DeMar DeRozan on that low block where he could turn around and just shoot right over the top of Anthony. It was, like shooting fish in a barrel for DeRozan.
The the
Shot 50,
switch the switch is such an evil thing when teams are smart.
he shot 50% from the floor, got to the line 10 times, converting nine, and had 23 points. That to me was the difference in that game. So despite the coaching staff's best efforts to surround Anfernee Simons with plus defenders, they still were able to identify a mismatch against Portland's weakest link on the defensive end of the floor. So I think that is a little concerning if you're a Blazer fan. And I think just taking a step back from the game by game basis, I think this year four, this is it for any Chauncey Billups believers out there. Like this is it. This is the last stand that you get right now. Like, right, we're in election season and there's still a bunch of undecided voters, and you're waiting till the last minute to see who you're going to cast your vote for.
Hmm.
This is kind of your election year
Hmm.
for Billups believers, right? You can point out to the fact that Dame was hurt, a lot of roster turnover, they tanked, there was injuries. If you want to buy into that, that is your prerogative. Me and you personally saw that first 2 or 3 months with Billups, where even with a healthy Dame coming off of a 6 seed with Terry Stotts, that the team was playing sub 500 ball before they decided to shut Dame down
Hmm.
because they were performing so uh, underwhelmingly. But that's beside the fact. I think this is the last really hurrah for any chance that you can think that Chauncey is an NBA level head coach. The Blazers are relatively healthy. I know Thibault is out. I know Rob Williams is out, and I know Shaden Sharp is out. But really, no NBA team, it just seems like, is completely healthy at this point of the season. And really, I think we're only missing Shaden Sharp out there. I think what Donovan has provided is similar production to what you're getting from Thibault, or excuse me, from Rob Williams.
Hmm.
And I don't really know where minutes would be coming from Thibault when I think Tumani has really elevated his play. So I think you could maybe say Shaden, but I don't think having Shaden Sharp would have affected any of those four outcomes. And while the start of the season is difficult, historically, I think it was one of the five hardest starts of the past 30 years. I think I caught that statistic on the radio after opening night. I would say the teams they have played so far aren't really contenders. You look at Golden State, who missed the playoffs last year. You look at Sacramento, who missed the playoffs last year. And you look at the New Orleans Pelicans, who were a seventh or eighth seed and were also playing without DeJounte Murray and Trey Murphy.
Hmm.
So while it wasn't a cakewalk schedule, I wouldn't say that those first four games were murderer's row.
No, like,
Yes, the schedule is going to get to that point, but the fact of the matter remains, it was a manageable first four games. Your three most important veterans, Simons, Grant, and Ayton, all healthy. Your offseason acquisition, Avdia, healthy. Yet you get blown out in two. One was a historical blown out. You blew a big double-digit lead when you controlled the game on Friday night,
hmm.
and you win on Sunday because you got hot from behind the three-point line. Like that's kind of the nature of today's NBA. One team gets hot, the other team doesn't. The hot team from three is usually going to win, but that's not sustainable for 82 games to come out on top more times than not. So I think that's what I'm really looking at when I'm watching this team. Like opening night was a disaster. Like I was so upset. I don't care that they lost. I We paid decent money. Like it was the most expensive ticket
Yeah.
that we paid for in our ticket package. And you coined the term. It was like we were watching recess ball
Mm.
for the Portland Trailblazers. Everyone remembers you go out to recess and it's just like chaos. Everyone gets the ball, everyone wants to shoot. You're not really playing defense. You just want to launch threes and you want to shoot as fast as you can because you've only got a limited amount of time before you got to go back to class, right? It was pure chaos with no direction on nobody knew what their role was. Nobody knew what to do out on the court. Once Golden State figured out how to stop the off-ball denial from Tumani Kamara, it was blouses. It was lights out, and it for that performance on opening night, I thought that set a pretty bad tone for the rest of the season. Like you can't lose by 36 on your home opener. Like that's just to a team that's not going to be a contender. Now
I
they
mean,
might add some
and
pieces
here's the
later
deal
on.
about Golden State. It's not super talented, but the coaching staff got them into positions to succeed. I would say that the Blazers are more talented than the Warriors, but we were put in the most awful places to succeed. Like, dude, your son's getting older. Eventually, you're gonna have to go to soccer games, and you're gonna have to watch all of these kids chase the ball. That's what the Blazers did that game. They're just chasing the ball. Like the whole spacing the court thing just didn't wasn't a thing with the Portland Trailblazers. Like they were putting four guys on one side and trying to run offense on the side that was just overloaded with players. It's we're really just missing out on anything that's like elevated basketball. It really feels like you and I are doing Future Fridays and we're watching a college team try and punish the rim. Like, yo, when we watched the New Orleans game together, that set basketball and spacing back so many years because like it was Zion, it was Scoot, it was all of these non-shooters on the court, and it was just my big player is gonna body yours. It was just like we're. I would say that the offense has always been bad, but now it's just gotten to the point where it's just like inefficiently, like it legitimately can't get worse. So like I don't even know who's in charge of it. Is it the Indiana coach in charge of the offense now? I forgot what his name is. Like,
Nate Bjorkgren,
yeah, Bjorkson. Like,
Bjorkston.
I know Indiana people hated his guts last year, so I don't know. It just seems like we're like when we watched Juwan Howard in Michigan, we saw like a much better offense than we're watching from a Portland Trailblazers team consistently. Like there are certain college coaches that have developed better schematics than what the Blazers are doing right now. Like that it's just it's so inefficient for us to score unless New Orleans is going completely and totally no middle and they're sending every bit of help because they have a 6'9" center and Jerami Grant's hitting threes. Like I truly don't understand our offense at all.
I think the problem is they try to play like an elite offense, but they don't have the pieces to make that work. For anybody who's played NCAA football, the new one, if you're a team and you go on the road to a hostile environment, you got the stadium pulse, your screen shaking, you look to see the play, you look to see the play art, and you don't know which icons or which player because your players are rattled. That's the Portland Trailblazers on most nights against teams that are better than them. And the way combat that is how I do it. I run the ball, I try to score, then you kind of calm down, and then you can run your offense. The Blazers just try to go out all gas, no breaks. And I would like to see them take the approach where they work the shot clock down, they find an open shot, they get to the rim, they take the three if it's off of dribble penetration, and you kind of slow the game down. I know analytics really poo-poos all of that, but I don't think Portland can play analytic basketball with the pieces that they have in the current sets
So
that they
would
are
you
running.
say speed the tempo up and increase possessions or slow it down?
No, they need to slow it down
Yeah.
because when you watch that game, specifically Golden State, they try to go fast and it's like one pass and Repair's getting the ball and somebody's on him and he's just jacking up a corner three.
Mhm.
Jabari's does it. Like Krista, everyone who gets the ball, it's like one pass and shoot. It's not a good shot. You're forcing it's probably resulting in a longer rebound. So then you got to play transition defense with a young team, which means you got to communicate, which we haven't always been good at. Like
We haven't been
it
good at
just
it when we were good.
it
But you
just
know what I mean?
it's just a domino effect, and I think you can shorten the game a little bit and try to make some good possessions, get to the free throw line, score with the clock stopped, and give yourself a chance to be competitive. I don't think the style of play is really cohesive and helping them contribute to more competitive performances.
So
They
do you
can't.
think Chauncey's thinking like increase possessions so there's more chance for us to
I think
potentially
every
score,
coach
even
in the
though we
NBA is
can't?
playing. I think every coach in the NBA does that. That's
Yeah.
that's why you see so many high variance scores. That's why you see, some
But I
blowouts like
would I would say this is the first time since we've done a podcast where it's like, oh, we're a bad offensive team. Like Dame saved us from being
yeah,
bad. Like
absolutely.
and Terry Stotts' system is like I talked bad about it for years about how unimaginative it is. But comparing his offense to what we're running now, it's like dog, I was what, dude, you know how bad my eyesight is now? God, we're going back to old man talk, but like I was confusing like random, like I know every player that's playing in the Golden State Portland game. I was like, is that Denny Avdi or Kamara? I couldn't see shit, but I could see what the Blazers were doing every offensive possession without knowing who the players were. And if I can figure that out without the benefit of sight, really, what do you think Steve Kerr and Willie Green and every other NBA coach that is actually competent that is saying, "Oh, that's a one high screen and Scoot's going, okay," or it's one high screen that Ant ignores and is doing his own thing. Okay, I can figure that out. Like, if I can figure it out without actually seeing it, Could you imagine what these actual smart analytical coaches are doing? Like, come on, man. It's so unserious. And you saw the body language game one. It was the most
Yeah,
unserious
the body
thing you've
language
ever seen.
was poor. And although the Blazers got the preferred result on Friday, which we need as many losses as possible, I think it is deflating for those who bought tickets to the game
You
or
saw
will.
everybody around us being so devastated about that loss.
But on Friday, the Blazers had a lead, and this was probably the most it's hard to be more infuriating than losing by 36 at home. So it's equally as upsetting, right? The Blazers they get out to a great lead. They're up by 14, 16 points in the third. New Orleans makes a run. It's about middle of the fourth quarter, and it's like a one possession game. Danny Avdia is not playing well, so he subs in Scoot Henderson. And I was like, clapping, thank you. Like let's let the young kid shine and finish out a game. But what does he do? He sticks Scoot in the corner and he allows Anfernee Simons just to go hero ball.
Mm,
Over the final 3 minutes against the New Orleans Pelicans, he shot 1 of 5. He had 3 turnovers. He was blocked twice and 1 out of bounds turnovers. Only Jerami Grant took a shot over the final 4 minutes and 22 seconds that wasn't a tip in, off of a rebound. Kumara had 2 tip ins that did not convert.
mm.
Um, and you look at that final play, Sage, we've seen that final play 2 or 3 times last year when they throw the ball in the backcourt and he says, I give Ant the opportunity to make a decision with him gaining
And you
momentum
know
and
who
going
was on him?
uphill.
Herbert
It
Jones was
doesn't matter who was on him. We know what Ant's
on
decision is going to be. It's going to go to the basket and just throw up some prayer. He had in every instance of that, in any every iteration of that play, Anfernee has always just shot
shot the
the
ball. Yeah. Well, the thing about that New Orleans game that was the loss, like the reason, like I even tweeted this, and I try not to tweet as much. I tweeted, "Know your personnel." The run happened because of Jordan Hawkins getting loose, right? Like that's your guy. That was your guy. Like I think he was third or fourth in that draft class. So we know him. He shoots. He was the one guy on the court that shot. And the play that generated them the most space was Yves Missi sets a screen in the left side of the court. Jordan runs his dude into it. They don't do a good enough job to switch, and Jordan Hawkins shoots. And that's how they won. That's the play that gave the Pelicans the win. Now, Yves Missi is an excellent screen setter because I watched a lot of his Baylor games, but if we did something different, I think we would have stopped that play. So I think it was a failure on both sides of the ball, defensively and
Well,
offensively,
you want to talk
for that loss.
defensively, maybe not put Anthony Simons on 6'10" Brandon Ingram for the final shot and just let him walk. He walked him down, turned over, and just elevated for an easy opportunity. Speaking of Simons, I feel like his production continues to be super inconsistent.
Mhm.
The shot selection has not improved. I was watching
No, it's gotten worse, man. Let
even
talk about his
spec-
process of
yeah,
driving into double coverage all the time.
I was specifically watching that Friday game, and Portland had some momentum, but he kept looking for that home run three where he would just come off a screen and just pull up. Early in the shot clock, he wasn't really in rhythm. He took 2 or 3 of those in a row, and it really allowed New Orleans to chip back into that lead that Portland had built up, which ultimately led to the loss.
Mhm.
His finishes are just so soft around the rim. He's usually floating away from the basket, or he's trying to just put some incredible English on it. Like he's, it's hard to imagine a dunk contest
Tell
in.
him what you were texting me about the
He's trying to do royal jelly on like every
it's
single
jelly
finish. Like,
fam, but I wasn't gonna stop you from saying royal jelly.
come on, like let's.
Yeah.
And then you observed opening night that Avdia was trying to set him some off-ball screens, and he just like has no idea how to utilize those. Like we're in year 7, and he's a combo guard, but he doesn't know how to play off the ball. I think that's a big problem. And also
Do
like
you
thinking
think it's
about
him? Well, obviously it's him not
yes.
realizing it, but like Chauncey Billups has to be so he gave him the ultimate green light, so it's like it confuses me because if he
No,
wasn't on the
it's
Portland
him
Trailblazers, he
because
wouldn't have this ability to do whatever he wants. Like if he goes to any other team, it's gonna be like the biggest culture shock in the world because damn near every team has a star player. So he has to learn how to play off ball sometime if he wants to be on a competent team. Like this shit's just so bad for him. Like learning all of these horrible habits. Like,
I don't, and here I am not a Chauncey Billups fan, but I do not believe it's necessarily him and his fault because when he was playing in the backcourt alongside Lillard, neither of them knew how to play off ball, and Dame had plenty of years under
mhm,
Terry Stotts. It was just a your turn, my turn. I don't want to step on your toes. Now, maybe from that instance, Chauncey could have stepped in and say, "Hey, knock all this unselfish stuff off and let's play." I do think Ant would benefit from a better coach, but I think it's just some players are better playing with the ball in their hands. You look at Brandon Roy, you look at that's why he didn't really want to share the backcourt with Andre Miller because
mhm.
Andre Miller wanted to play with the ball in his hands, and as did B. Roy. Like some players just don't know how to play off ball, but when you're an undersized combo guard, I think that is a skill set that you should figure out a
Mhm.
way to incorporate into your game. But I think
Couldn't
my
you
big
imagine him doing what Jordan Hawkins did with Yves Missy's, like run off a screen and shoot? Like
I
Jordan
can't
did
because
did it
it's
great.
in some and it's not in others. And that's why I love Jordan Hawkins because I saw all of that off-ball skill at UConn and I love off-ball players because not enough players understand it. But if
And
I'm
yeah, like is there a team besides the Washington Wizards that don't have a up and coming superstar?
Clippers,
True. I mean, without Kawhi, yeah, you're right. But like, so if he wants to play like this, there's two options if he doesn't resign here. Like it just is confusing me with how many good players are in the league. Like he can't play with Luka, he can't play with Jokic, he can't play with any of these dudes with how he's playing in 2020 October 2024. Like it just does it just seems like it's such bad it's bad like risk tolerance. You're not going to be able to play like this if you want to be competitive.
and I think my bigger concern is long term, pretty much actually in the short term, because as we have long and short term, because Shaden Sharp right now is out, so that opens up there's more minutes to go around, right? They're having Scoot come off the bench, but once Shaden returns, like are you going to start him? Are you going to start Ant over Scoot still? Like, when are you finally, if you're Joe Cronin, when are you finally going to greenlight the Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp backcourt that you spent so many resources, so
Mhm.
many losses accumulating to get in
Years,
position
years.
to draft?
Mhm.
And you specifically said last year, end of season press conference, we didn't get enough data on our young talent. Well, here is a prime opportunity, knock on wood, that Scoot stays healthy and Shaden returns, but what are you going to do with Anfernee Simons? Because you need, I think, as much data as possible on Scoot and Shaden because there is a loaded backcourt draft class coming up, and you
Mhm.
want to feel confident in your guys that you can go out and maybe find a forward or a bigger player because
Mhm.
you're set on those two in the backcourt. So what do you do with Simons? I don't think you can play all three at the same time. I I don't know. I
And
don't
we
think
spent
there's
so much assets getting taller too. So to
I don't
go
think there's a
against
market
yeah.
out there for Simons, if I'm being clear, if I'm being honest. So they've got some really uncomfortable conversations to have, but the player that gets mentioned most in the trade rumors is Jerami Grant. And I have been very pleased with what I have seen from Jerami. This is like the Jerami Grant we got for the first 2 or 3 months when he
Mhm.
first arrived, minus the isolation. He is doing it on both ends of the floor. His defensive activity is been incredible. He's averaging 2.3 blocks per game. A few of them have been chase down
Yeah, and
variety
help side
at the
blocks
rim,
too.
and he is letting the game come to him. He was a career high 8 made threes on 17 attempts against New Orleans. Every one of his 13 made threes this year, this is a stat I love, has been assisted. There's no
Mhm.
more pull up threes, there's no isolation threes. Everything is coming within the rhythm of the offense. And I have just really loved the lack of ISO ball from Jerami. This is the Jerami that I think other teams should be looking at and saying, we can exactly put this version of JG in our roster as the third or fourth option and elevate our chances. to be a championship contender because I think he can absolutely be the make or break for a few teams out there with the way that he is playing, the
Mhm.
way that he can shoot the ball, he can handle it, he can grab and go, he can defend multiple positions. Like he is playing absolutely awesome right now.
Yeah, and I think it's like it's obvious that he is not long for this team, so this is kind of an audition process for him. Like even though a lot of his shots have been in the flow of the offense, sometimes he goes out of it. Like it's still assisted, but it's still like he's showing what he can do, creating his own shot, even though it is, an assisted basket. I think that he's doing it correctly with like his value. He's showing that he can be isolation, but he can work in the flow of the offense. It's kind of like the exact opposite of what Anfernee can do. And then the thing that is impressing me the most is like he's hounding defensively, and that's going to show even more. Like, yeah, he's versatile offensively, but defensively he can do that. Like, I think the Nuggets are in trouble with their lack of shooting currently. I think that Jerami Grant would help them out tremendously. The defense and the shooting, like you can, instead of putting a Brown in, you can have Jerami Grant be the fifth starter. I think that makes that team so much scarier. So I think he's doing a fantastic job of showing what he can do to competent, good teams. Like, oh, Jerami Grant's can fit around damn near anybody with what he's doing. Now, I hope that we can find somebody to make that trade soon because we do have a logjam at the 3-4. But like what he's doing right now has been very, very impressive in terms of pure basketball.
Yeah, it is kind of a bummer that he's probably the most likely Blazer to be moved because if I'm looking at this roster and I can put together my five favorite players to make, maybe a starting five or a finishing five or a five that gets the most amount of run, I
Mhm.
want to say Scoot, Shaden, Tumani, Jeremy, and Donovan. Like
Mhm.
those are the five. If I could put five together, it would be those five because I think you get enough shooting. I think you get definitely defense and length. I think you have enough
Versatility.
connectivity, versatility,
Yeah.
playmaking, athleticism. Um, but that's obviously not going to happen because they're clearly looking to move him. But it would be a bit of a bummer because like I think that's the when I imagined a rebuild, that's kind of where I went to, where you have four young players and maybe a veteran like Jeremy who is going to put it all together.
Mhm.
And if you win, that's great because there's a chance you're going to win with one of your young guys doing some good work, and Jeremy's going to help keep you afloat. And if you lose, that's fine too because you're getting development. You're growing together. He's the consummate professional. He's been kind of a model teammate since he's arrived. And once they scaled back his isolation, it's been so much more of a joy to watch his skill set on the floor. So clearly, if I had my druthers, I would look to move Simons way before Jerami Grant. But it's going to be interesting to see what Joe Cronin does because he really did nothing this summer. And that's why we went the entire summer without recording because, we're
Mhm.
sitting here waiting for him to clean up this roster. And Sage, now you got three guys that are going to return pretty soon. And I don't know where the minutes are for all three of those guys because you look at Donovan Clingan as a rookie, I thought has done a serviceable job. He's averaging 2 blocks per game. He's has never been in foul trouble. He's given you 13 minutes a night. He's shooting 64% from the field. If he gets more minutes, he's a walking double double. And I think he's playing well enough that even if you want to showcase Robert Williams, you shouldn't be because this is
Mhm.
your guy. Like he needs those 13 minutes a night, at least for this year to stay in rhythm,
Mhm.
to up his conditioning. And, I want to see them work in more of that short role playmaking. I want to see him attempt a three, God damn it, but he's
I
not
want
looking
to see
for
him
it.
set actual screens and not have our guards have him slip. I think the conditioning thing is the one thing that is a little bit worrying because, like you pointed it out, like he's huffing and puffing on some of these like fast breaks. Like when he's stationary, he's awesome. But in today's NBA, how often can you be stationary by the basket as a big man? It's very rare. So I think that he needs these 15 minutes of actual run to get his stamina up because he's like it's been marketed so much. He's a big dude. He needs to be able to move the mass and the height and the mass that he is. So I mean, I hate to even think this, but if you want to show off Robert Williams, it's gonna have to be Donovan Clingan and Robert Williams together because I, I don't want to. I don't think Robert is a long-term piece, right? I think we both can agree on that.
No, and I think pie in the sky, you get a first round pick in return for him. Like, and I don't think that probability is very high.
Not this draft. I think you're looking at a future first.
No, I'm just talking about any, it doesn't matter. A
Yeah.
fake first, no matter what first. Like the chances of Robert Williams coming back, how long would he have to play to prove to teams that he can stay healthy and produce? Like, I think that probability is so
So
low.
yeah.
Yeah.
I I
I
I
would give I would give Donovan this season and next, right? That would put him at a senior in college to get his conditioning up. You can even look at Zach Edey, who really made the jump from junior to senior year in
mhm.
terms of getting his conditioning right. And now he was able to play damn near 40 minutes a night at Purdue. Like this is Donovan's first year, going to play hopefully playing 82 games, travel, get his body right. I think they're doing the right thing by bringing his minutes along slowly. But if by the end of next year he's playing 22, 24 minutes a night, that's chef's kiss. Like
Mhm.
this is a work in progress to have a good rim protector like Klingon. One other thing I had, speaking of the big man, DeAndre Ayton. I think we continue to get a little bit of the enigma when it comes to DA. He looked flat out disengaged on opening
Oh
night.
yeah. He looks.
That game against it was one of the Pelican games, but I think it was the one they won. Scoot didn't shoot very well. I think he was like 2 of 12,
2 of 12. I heard the people behind us yell
but
complain about it. He had like nine
he
assists though, right?
exactly. And he immediately, as soon as he went in through a
Throw
lob to
that
D,
lob.
he got DA involved. And once DA got involved, it's not a secret with centers throughout the history of the NBA. You get the big man involved on offense, he's going to do everything else for you on defense. He's going to grab the rebounds, he's going to outlet, he's going to protect the paint, and he's going to just generally show more enthusiasm for playing the game of basketball because you're getting him involved. None of the players currently in that starting five look to get him the ball. It's not an onus of the offense to make him the first or second option, which I think was a bit crazy, especially considering his end of the season last year when he was one of the focal points. Um, and honestly, I think if you're looking to not re-sign him next in 2026, you need to really boost that value so you can get something from him, right? Like
A positive asset.
you cannot have DA out there being a hit or miss when it's like, am I gonna have to coach him up? Is he gonna bring the energy tonight? Like you have to really sell him to the rest of the league. And the Blazers just are just frankly a more competitive team when DeAndre is shooting the basketball, being the first or second option, feeding off of Scoot. Like that's one of the keys to unlocking Scoot and helping him
Hmm.
with his pace because a lot of that is in the pick and roll. A lot of it is manipulating the defense, when to throw the lob, when not to throw the lob. Are you just going to take what the defense gives you and you're going to pop out for the mid-range jumper? Portland does not have a player like that other than Ayton that can get Scoot into a rhythm as a distributor. So it's important that they get as much run together and you get DA as engaged as possible. But you're not
So
going to do that by not including him. Like that's just human nature.
yeah, yeah. Ant is the experiment of putting Ant as a point guard has failed for so many years. I thought this was concluded. He's not. But I have a question. As the best Blazers social media guy, I've noticed on Insta that they feature DA a lot in their stuff. So what does that mean? Like they're like, if you were involved in all of this stuff and you're told that you need to feature DA, what like is it to show that he's a leader for the next few years, or what would you think that the featuring of DA is? Or is it just because he can be personal sometimes?
No, I think that all of that, so marketing works hand in hand with the general manager, basketball operations. And you look at that graphic that's painted on the window of of the Rose Garden, right? They've had, it was Dame for so long, it was Rip City, and now it's this collage. But there's only three current Trailblazers featured. It's Scoot and it's DA, and they're lifting up Shaden Sharp. You look at the collectible glasses that they are offering this year. There's three of them. It's Scoot, it's Shaden Sharp, and it's Donovan Clingan. There's clearly players that they are marketing. There's clearly players that they're building around, and there's clearly players that are safe for this year. That I think everyone knows Jerami Grant's going to get moved sooner or later. I think it's probably pretty clear that Anfernee Simons is not in the long-term
Mm,
plans, although I don't know how they find a trade partner. I think that's going to be incredibly difficult. So when you look at it, you've obviously got your three lottery picks, and then I think DA is kind of that veteran presence that they feel the most confidence in, at least for this year. And it doesn't have to be a long-term marketing push. It could be this year, who are we featuring and who's going
mm,
to be a guy. And I also think with certain players, it's about making them feel loved and wanted. And so when DA sees himself, he's like, okay,
mm,
like I am part of this team. And maybe their plan is to keep him long term at a discounted rate. And maybe that's something that they've talked about. We've discussed Klingon and his injury history, his need to up the conditioning. Maybe this is their solution as a two-headed center monster. The NFL goes to running back by committee.
mm,
Why not go center by committee if you're in the NBA and you feel really strongly about that duo? And if you don't feel like you're going to get proper value for Ayton and you think you can resign him to a reasonable deal, then by all means do
mm,
that. So that could be something that Joe Cronin has in mind and has had conversations with the agent. But as someone who worked with marketing, who gets those directives, yeah, those graphics have a definitive purpose. So when you see like season ticket renewals or ticket packs, look at the players that are featured on all promotional materials. It will tell you everything without saying nothing.
mm. And I think like I think as a human being, he's like 27, right?
I don't think he's that old. He was drafted in 2018 as a freshman.
Freshman. Okay.
Seven. So he's like 25, 26.
But I
To
think
your point,
I think he got a raw deal as a young man. Like he might not have been the most mature, he might not have been the most confident in himself. I think that Blazers have given him a reason to feel more confident in himself and, be more of his true authentic self. So I think the media people are like, hey, he can be funny. Let's get him there. I think that being here in Portland has given him a little bit more of a maturity thing. Now I think that he gets made fun of, unfortunately, in the whole basketball media landscape, but it is what it is. Like I think he's growing and maturing here. But I wouldn't like if it was me and we can agree to a reasonable salary extension for him, I would do it just because of the injury issues with Donovan, the ceiling issues with Donovan, and the conditioning issues with Donovan. If we could nail out a reasonable contract for DA, I would be totally into it. It's just like we're not gonna give him the supermax in 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, but he's still relatively young. He's athletic, but I think that Scoot is the only one that actually is a plus passer. Like I tweeted it the other day. He averages like 12 and a half potential assists. He's like one of the top 10 passing guards, but because of our lack of shooting everywhere or finishing, he's getting like 7 or 8 when he should be getting 12 or 13. Like I think Scoot's doing wonders for DA. I do wish that he would um be willing to use, set screens and utilize his body more, but you know, I'm happy with the B plus center, especially if we can re-sign him to a good contract.
also, don't read any Suns tweets or forums about Yusuf Nurkic. They are not too thrilled with the Bosnian beast. So I've given Cronin a lot of flack, but one thing, getting Kamara and Aiton in that Lillard deal basically
That's no,
straight.
that's his best deal.
That
The
that's
Kamara thing is his best
that
deal.
that's that was a really good deal. So, we may be frustrated with Aiton at times, but no disrespect
This
to
was the
you.
same, like, but we were also frustrated with Nurkic.
That's what I was saying. No
Yeah.
disrespect to Nurkic, but I would gladly take DA over post-injury Nurkic any day of the week.
But I think they're both B players, and I think
I think Ayton is he's a much better player. Nurkic cannot finish around. Like I'm telling you, like it's been bad Nurk this year in the Valley of the Sun.
I haven't watched it, so I'm just trying to remember last year's number. I'm like, dang, I think they're both B plus players, and if you can accept it, that's great. There's one person
Anything
that I want
else?
to talk about,
What's that? What do you want to talk about to wrap this up?
Denny. I know you have a certain opinion on Denny, and I'm kind of the
I was
opposite.
specifically going to I held him off of my topics list
Oh, okay.
because I was going to give him more time, but if you want to dive, I will.
So I did a thing on TikTok saying, yeah, we'll probably be talking about Denny because he and I have about 180 degrees of separation on how we feel about Denny. But if you wanted to give him a few more weeks to marinate, I am totally cool with that because I think that he's been put in a situation that's kind of a no-win situation with his skill set with Chauncey Billups, which with what Chauncey Billups wants of a secondary or tertiary player. So yes, let's not talk about Denny until we get some more data points, like Cronin said.
I think my biggest beef was the price. You paid premium on and what you said was astute. A fifth starter on a championship level contending team. You paid a premium on another role player, which Portland has a history of doing. And instead of having additional assets, we have a we need that star. Like we need to go star hunting, Sage. We don't need fifth role players on, we
The thing that that irrit the thing that confused me about Denny is I think the player is good. I really do. I think he is a good player. But the timeline issue is
but also
awful.
two first round picks and Brogdon good. Like to me, that you should be in the borderline all-star conversation with that package, especially with how teams value first round picks right now.
But I mean, those last year's buying price. I don't know. I think it was a bad trade for multiple reasons, but I think that he's a good player. It's just he is not going to be on the team when we're good. We're going to trade him for a first round pick in the future. But
If,
I
if
think
they
that he is a
draft
good
if,
player.
if they draft Cooper Flag or Ace Bailey,
He's gone.
see ya.
Yeah,
You're
yeah, yeah.
gone.
Honestly, if we like, yeah, I don't know. Like I think Denny's good, but I don't. I think the buying price was Cronin just made a mistake, just like Neil. Like
Yeah, to me it was
I don't think
Covington.
the people are ready for the Cronin is bad GM talk, but it's
No,
happening
I
soon.
am there. I am
Oh,
getting
oh
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've been there
So
for a year. Like last thing, like we've done these Future Fridays for a long time, right? Every draft that he has done, we've had a conversation about. We've talked about. So it's not like he's diving deep on these draft picks. Like if two podcasters identify, hey, this guy's good, we should talk about him in a podcast. He's not diving deep into this stuff. He's just surface level, and we got really lucky with who we selected with Shaden and Scoop in the lottery
and
love.
one programming note this year, clearly the Blazers are going to be bad. And we don't really need them to win. We're not going to do predictions for games. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. What we will do, we'll go down the week's worth of games, just maybe a game that you think might be the most competitive. Obviously, tonight they play in Los Angeles against the Clippers. Friday, Saturday, a back-to-back home against the Thunder, and then on the road against the Suns, which is just brutal. And then for the
Who
third
won
time,
last year in the pick'ems? Did you?
I think by a couple, but you won the previous two. And then for the
Yeah, I
third
mean,
time already, they go to New Orleans. So they played the Pelicans three times within the first eight games, which is absolutely wild. I think the game that has the highest probability of being competitive is that Clipper game.
yeah.
I the Thunder absolutely waxed us twice last year, including once
Wasn't
at
it one of
home.
the 60s?
Yeah. And then they have to go to Phoenix, which is Phoenix is playing really well. It's on the back to back. I think New Orleans at home is going to be a much different team to play than New Orleans in Portland.
Informal, yeah.
And obviously you have no Kawhi Leonard, so there is a chance for it to be competitive tonight. But again, Ty Lue is such a great coach. They've got a good staff, and they just have adults on that team that know how to play basketball. So Any final words before we wrap this bad boy up?
I'm trying to like none of these teams that we're playing outside of New Orleans are post centric, like or dr drive centric. Like all of these, like Norman Powell's gonna shoot. Whoever else is on the Clippers team is shooting.
Hasn't
James
Zoo been
Harden.
getting busy though?
Oh, I think Zubac's getting shut down. I think that the thing that scares me is perimeter defense. I don't think that we're gonna have fast enough rotations. If it's not Denny rotating, I'm worried about it.
I think
So,
that OKC game could get really, really
oh
ugly.
no, we're losing by 60, dog. Like it's gonna be bad. Like it's gonna be disgusting what that team does to us. But I think the Clippers could be good. I think we lose all four of these games that we play. But like the Clippers, we have the best chance. But I want to see what happens with James Harden versus Anfernee Simons when Ant is on defense. I think it could be disgusting. But I would like to see if Scoot can be strong enough and not foul to defend James Harden for an extended time. So that's my thing.